Aloha and welcome to a special weekend edition if you're watching live. Happy weekend to all of you. So I do a series called Plasma Apocalypse 101. I have an advanced series and I have like a 101 Plasma Apocalypse for beginners. So what I wanted to do now that I've sort of finished that series is I wanted to start something new where I can sort of refresh and recap the events of the Plasma Apocalypse and throw around some ideas and allow the chat to ask questions and stuff for all the new people that have that are kind of new to the concept or people who are trying to get caught up on some of the information. So what's up to everybody? Not a lot to show on the screen today. So today it's just going to be a lot of chat, questions, talking and stuff like that. So something to listen to at the very least. Let's see if there we go. I fixed that. All right, cool. So I'm going to be in the chat, and what I would, the first person in the chat was ears to hear, eyes to see, who says, hey, good to see you. What's up, everyone? Kimberly, I see everyone in the chat. Everyone's coming in. Now, listen, if you would like to get my attention to like ask a question or something, just simply type in JAY and it'll highlight in the chat on my side. That way I can differentiate between who's talking to me and the rest of the chat that's going on. All right, cool. So let's jump right into things, right? Let's start talking about some weird, crazy, interesting things, especially concerning the apocalypse. That's something that I'm very interested in because I feel like, Shelly, hey, welcome to my channel. I feel like the apocalypse connects it all, at least here in our world. It connects many things, I should say, right? For me, when I first went down this rabbit hole, I started exploring and researching so many different subjects. But when I came to the realization that there are these cyclical resets, I started seeing connections to those cyclical resets everywhere. What's up, everyone in the chat? Letixia, what's up? Good to see you. Kimberly F, hello. Sage, good to see you too. All right, cool. So what is the world storm? There's a worldwide storm. The legends say, they speak of a worldwide storm, also known in the olden days as a tempest, right? It's a world storm that kicks up. Now, our storms that we have on a smaller scale, whether they be hurricanes or tornadoes or whatever types of storms or weather, is created because of the pressure in our world and the differences between the high pressure areas and the lower pressure areas. And that's what creates our weather. So in order to get a worldwide weather phenomenon or a worldwide storm, the pressure has to change worldwide. So I do go by an alternative, older, ancient cosmology. And I also have added to that to sort of adapt the older cosmology, modern science, and my own experience and research into my own unique worldview, I suppose you could say. Not just the world, the view that I have of our local world, but of all of what is known as the cosmos, or what I call the fractalverse, because I believe that we are one realm among many, many, many alternate Earths out there that are all experiencing in different ways. Jay Warren's in the chat and says, I can't wait for the reset. Much needed. Thunder. Hey, Heather, Feather, blah, 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 I can't say her name. Heather Thunderhawk. Hey, good to see you. All right, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start recapping. Okay, I'm going to give you some of the highlights of the Plasma Apocalypse. And if anyone has a question or you want to jump in or something, just jump into the chat. Let me know. I'll be happy to put your comment right up there on the screen and talk to you guys about it. Especially if you're newer and you have some questions about how things work, right? And although I would consider myself to be a jack of many trades. And we all have our areas of expertise or our areas of focus. This is one of my areas of focus, right? So it's not that I know the answers to any question that you might ask, right? But I have studied a bunch, and I do study a bunch, about this particular topic, and it's known as eschatology, or the study of the end of things, or the end of the way of life, or the modern age, basically. And it's cyclical. It continues on. It happens over and over and over again. The legends, the myths, alternative history, religions, all refer to this event that happens. And I believe it kicks off when the world depressurizes. Now, there's other things that lead up to that, signs and omens that we've talked about. For example, some signs that you may notice right now are the sun getting brighter, the moon getting brighter, the time going by faster in the day, wars and rumors of wars, all of the swarms that are happening with animals and insects and people, right? Lots of things are starting to happen. If we take notice, we can see that they've happened before. And if we know that they've happened before, we can predict that they will happen again, that we can start looking for those things. Those things that have happened in the past become signs for us to look for, omens for us to read the future, basically, so that we can prepare for these types of things. So yeah, let's start off with the ancient past. Okay, so in the ancient past, legends and myths abound. Religions, they talk about this tempest, this world storm that happens. It's really interesting. In Mormonism, they have a story of what was happening over here in the Americas during the time that Jesus was being crucified. And even the Bible, when it talks about Jesus's crucifixion, which I believe is a story of one of the last resets that we've had, it talks about lightning that was exceedingly great and winds that were exceedingly great. When it says things like exceedingly great, it means abnormal, like not usual, not typical lightning. It's talking about something that's difficult for them to describe because they've never seen it before. So it's hard for them to put their finger on it. Pavlov Sheep says, JayDreamerZ, if everything is fractal, as above, so below. Oh, your comment's cut off. Hold on, let me fix that up real quick. Not sure why. Uno momento. Does that work? Sorry, one sec. How strange. Okay, one moment. Let me just do some quick fixing of this because I need to be able to read the comments. If you're joining us, I'm just fixing up the comments so that I can put them on the screen and read what you guys are saying here. That's so weird. It's like cutting it off. Oops. That's really weird. I'm not sure what's going on with the comments. Let's try it again. I'm just gonna delete it and add it back. Always with the technical difficulties. Okay, almost done. There we go. Okay, cool. Thanks for bearing with me. All right, boom. There we go. This way we don't have to do it every time. We'll just get it fixed up right now. Excuse me. Let's pull that down just a hair here. All right, cool. I think that should just about do it there. Say no. All right, sorry about that. It says, JayDreamerZ, what are your thoughts of swarms of animals walking in circles all around the earth recently? I believe it's a sign. To me, that's an omen. To me, that's a sign. Whatever the individual cause is, because that could happen for a variety of reasons, right? I've heard many different explanations of the animals walking around in circles. To me, whatever the collective reasons are for each individual happenstance, to me, it's a sign collectively. To me, it's an omen. And I see the world as making the circle, basically, which is the all-seeing eye in the sky or the depressurization point. Also, I feel that animals are becoming anxious, I guess is a good way to say that. Animals can feel and pick up on the electromagnetics of the earth and how they're going into flux. So it makes them anxious. It causes a little bit of panic in the animals. So they start to act differently. They start to move about in different patterns because oftentimes they follow the electromagnetic currents of our world, as do we. Many of us don't realize it. So those animal patterns start looking strange to us. They start looking abnormal because they're following the flux that our world is in. Our world's energy is in flux. So the animals will follow suit, and so will the people. All right, next up we've got, let's see. Eyes to hear, ears to hear, eyes to see, says Jay, has a very recent video about the circling animals. That's right. We did talk about that. Alex says, you did a really good video about it the other day. Thank you, yes. All right, cool. So back to the world storm. All right, so one of the things that happens is that the energy flips in our world. Okay, so every other cycle, every other apocalypse, the energy will flip around. The Earth's electromagnetic poles basically will flip around. And this is corroborated in modern academics. They even agree that these things happen. The timeline is a lot different to modern academics. And of course, the cosmology is a lot different too. But either way, they do teach this, and they do talk about how the Earth goes through these pole shifts. Now, many things that I've heard indicate that the modern academics basically, they sort of minimize it and dismiss it like it's not really that big a deal. It happens all the time and, it doesn't really affect life. That's kind of the feeling I get whenever I watch, these mainstream shows about the poles shifting or the polarity shift. The North Pole is on its way. It's moving right now. It's going to flip around. When that happens, lots of dangerous things are going to happen here in our world. First and foremost, we have an electromagnetic barrier around our world. Okay. So if we look at the world or the Earth, even in the modern academic portrayal of our modern accepted cosmology or whatnot, they show you that there is a magnetosphere, there's a plasmasphere, etc. And that magnetosphere is what is keeping it's keeping us safe. Okay. So that magnetism of our world is keeping us safe because the plasma outside of it is repelled by it. So if that electromagnetic dome or barrier was not there, if it was removed, which it will be, then that plasma will have free access to come in and ground itself to our world, which will cause all kinds of other byproducts that are going to happen after that. So whenever we talk about this polarity flip, right? It's not just the flipping of it, but it's the neutral point of that flip that when the apocalypse kicks off, right? So allow me to elaborate a little bit more. Our world is pressurized. That's why we have the various pressure systems or weather that we have worldwide, right? And because of that pressure, it exists. It continues to build, and our world increases in pressure more and more and more as time goes on. Eventually, the pressure is going to be released from the world. Right now, modern academics kind of implies that the world's pressure just sort of seeps out because they don't teach that there's an actual barrier up there. But I don't believe so. I believe the pressure is inside. It's locked in. And there's different pressure differentials because the inside of our world also releases pressure up to us, right? It comes up into our world. When they release pressure up through the roof of their sky, that we receive that extra pressure. So the more pressure that builds up, the bigger the apocalypse is going to be whenever it's released. All right, jumping back into the chat, we got Wild Billy who says, Jay, what's your take on the afterlife? Are we reincarnating? Good question. All right, so the afterlife. Okay, so I don't believe in death. That's just my personal thing. I don't believe in death. I know that the body goes away and that people die, right? But that the soul does reincarnate. At least while you're trapped in this world, while that electromagnetic barrier is up, it also acts as a confinement dome against your soul. So your soul will also stay here, which means you'll come right back down, right? Or you'll be reincarnated, basically. The time that you're set free from local reincarnation into this world or this realm or this earth version is whenever the world is depressurized and the aurora borealis and all the spirits and stuff, they all are sucked up and they leave this world and they go on to the next place. What's up, Red Squid? Hamburger Prophet? Good to see you. Ears to hear, eyes to see, says Jay. Maybe when the glass ceiling gets cracked, it's like a basketball getting punctured. All right, so let's talk about that, right? How does the world depressurize? So our world is filling with pressure all of the time. Many different popular songs and Hollywood movies, they make reference to the pressure. Excuse me. So the pressure is increasing over time, and as the population continues to increase exponentially, so does the pressure as well. So the pressure builds up. When we get to that neutral point of the electromagnetic shift, that's when that electromagnetic barrier that's protecting us from the plasma outside of our world disappears. It goes away. Right before that, the world's energy starts to go into flux, right? Because the electromagnetic poles are starting to go into flux. They're starting to shift and move around. That's a sign for us. That's an omen for us, right? It's not normal. Like, it should stay in one place, and then over time it'll start wobbling, going into flux, and then pretty soon it'll flip around the other way. It'll hit that neutral point. When it hits the neutral point, the electromagnetic dome or barrier disappears. Now, when that happens, that barrier, not only is it keeping out all of the plasma that swirls around our world, it is also holding in all of that pressure, and it is pushing against those elements that are repelled by a strong electromagnetic force, right? So there are gases in our atmosphere that are repelled by that same magnetic force. So they're being pushed back into our world, creating even more pressure. Whenever that electromagnetic force that's pushing everything in and holding it down goes away, it all goes to the apex. It all goes right above the North Pole to the center of our sky and blows a hole in the roof of the sky, basically. And the world depressurizes, and all of that atmosphere gets sucked out instantly, or rapidly, I should say, depressurizing our world, which in turn has its own byproducts, right? That gives rise to other things like fog being instantly created worldwide. As the atmosphere is pulled apart rapidly, the air turns into mist all over the place, which is where we get like the Stephen King's Mist movie and stuff. Or not Stephen King. Who was that? John Carpenter? I can't remember. All right, just remember, if you would like to get my attention, just type in JAY in the chat, and I'll pull up your question if you have any questions or anything. Let's see. We got Say No, who says, JayDreamerZ, when the plasma apocalypse happens, what will the moon and the sun act like? Okay, so the traditions indicate that the sun is going to disappear, basically, right? There's two different cycles, okay? Please keep this in mind. Let me go ahead and get that off there. All right, so there's two different cycles, right? We shift from one epic or one age or one era to a totally different epic or age or era, and then we revert back to the other one, right? And it goes back and forth. I refer to them affectionately as the blue sky and the red sky, because those are the colors, right? In general, those are the colors of the sky during those epics, during those ages. Currently, we live in the blue sky age. Now, the ancient myths and legends talk about how the sun will disappear one day, that the sun will go out in the middle of the day, depending on where you are, right? And that the sun won't give off its light. So during the winter apocalypse, the sun gets further and further and further out on the horizon, and the ancients thought it would disappear. They were worried that it would disappear because legitimately that's the time when, if it's going to happen during the winter solstice, that's when the sun will disappear. It'll go so far out that point of focus doesn't have a point above us any longer. So the sun disappears. Then there is the summer solstice. So there's another apocalypse that happens during the summer solstice. And that is whenever the plasma... Okay, so the first one, the plasma basically above our world that is responsible for things like the sunlight, it pulsates. Okay, so it's pulsating around our world as it's swirling around. Whenever it goes into flux too much, right, it will pulsate so widely that it doesn't give us a focal point called the sun. The opposite is true during the summer solstice, where that tube of plasma, or whatever you'd like to call it, big old plasma tentacle or tentacles around our world, that plasma that's swirling around will pulsate, but it will contract. It will do the opposite. When it contracts, that point of focus gets hotter and brighter, and daylight or the sort of the flashlight beam on our world. Jax, hey, what's up, Jax? It gets smaller and smaller. So daytime shrinks. The amount of time, the amount of light in the day and how often that point of focus goes around, it increases in its speed and it shrinks. And whenever the summer solstice comes around and it's the summertime apocalypse, the sun gets so hot that it starts to turn blue and daylight becomes dangerous to be out in because it's so hot. Basically, it starts to burn things. The sun transgresses the tropics where it's supposed to stop and come back to give us the other seasons, but it doesn't. It keeps going to the North Pole during the summer solstice. So it basically bakes the Earth in a little spiral on its way to the North Pole, giving us a yellow brick road that we could follow to go to the North Pole. I hope that helps to answer that question. I don't know if I went off on a tangent. Alex says it was called The Fog in the UK. And yes, John Carpenter 80s film. Right on. We got Jesse Williams in the chat who says, Jay, I hope that we don't depressurize like a balloon and take off to the side unless that's the plan, of course. So I believe it's going to be rapid depressurization, not instant or anything. Like if it depressurizes too quickly, it would just kill everything instantaneously, right? And if we look at the traditions and the patterns that we've seen in the past, we know that there have been many survivors, right? And I say many, not in comparison to the world's population, okay? But yes, rapid depressurization in comparison to like instant, you know what I mean? Seeking Hope says, Jay, have you prepped with food storage, or does that matter with all of this? Honestly, I don't know what matters to certain degrees. I'm not sure like what would be important to every individual in the entire Earth. You know, I can't really speak. You know, I could give somebody advice, but if they live in a rickety skyscraper or something, you know, like there's all kinds of ways that people could not survive. Okay. So mostly that's going to be up to the individual to use common sense, to use your intellect, to go to trust in your intuition and things of that nature. And also I wouldn't worry as much about food as I would water or air, right? The air is literally going to get sucked out of your lungs. And it will make it very difficult to breathe. Not impossible, but difficult, right? It won't be easy to breathe for the time that the world is depressurizing. So I would focus a bit more towards like oxygen and water, right? The water, you want to make sure you have it in a place where you can keep track of it. Everything's going to float up into the sky or up into the air. If you're inside of a building and the building doesn't get torn apart or anything, everything inside of the building is going to float too, including water. Be careful for glass and things like that, debris. Seeking Hope. Oh, I already read that one. I have not watched The Cell yet. I do plan on it though. I haven't seen it yet. Justice for All says it's time. It's all time travel. The event Jay is describing is the end, but the beginning of a new epic or beginning. Yes. So this throws us back into the Stone Age, right? Not just metaphorically, but actually where stones are created. Okay. You ever wonder where like the random boulders come from when you're out on a trip and there's just huge boulders in the middle of a field or on top of a mountain or in, you know, places that boulders have no business really being? That's because this is when they're created. This is a creation event. It's a destruction event. It destroys the modern age and the modern world, but it's also a creation event. All right, cool. Let me try to catch up. There's a lot of people jumping into the chat. Yahawashai says, JayDreamerZ, I've heard that there was a pinkish purple sky that existed pre-flood. Yes, absolutely. Have you heard about it? Yes. And is it related to the red sky? Yes. So if you, Yahawashai, I highly recommend checking out the sodium vapor lamp. Do a little bit of research on that and pull up a video on YouTube of somebody using a sodium vapor lamp and watch it and play it in slow motion too. That might help you out. Because that shows you the color spectrum that our world goes through, that the ancient myths and legends indicated that the sky initially turned dark. No light whatsoever except for whatever lights you see coming from the heavens, right? Or fires and explosions and stuff. Then they say that when the light appeared, it was purple. It was known as, or it is known, at least I know it, as the purple dawn, right? So the sky turns purple and then it starts to sort of ease into a red color. Right? A very deep blood kind of red color. After that, it mellows out and we get more of an orange golden age, right? The light turns golden. And I believe, and then after that's kind of like a monochrome yellowish. And then as pressure increases even more, that can sort of get rid of that yellowish as it turns more white color and broadens our spectrum of colors in our world. J-Dubs, what's up? Good to see you. Thank you. All right, we got Dio Shifter in the chat who says, JayDreamerZ, is it worth prepping and moving to a mountain, or are we all doomed? If you were all doomed, I would say you're all doomed. Like, I don't think you're all doomed, okay? It has to go on. There's a purpose for everything here, right? Everything that is here has a purpose to it. When that purpose is completed, then there is no longer a need to have anything, right? There's no longer a need for survivors or anything like that. However, if I go according to ancient history and the myths and the legends that have been handed down to us, we see that there are survivors all of the time. So I think that it is definitely survivable, right? Me personally, I believe that some people are in the right place at the right time, and maybe they were destined to be. I don't know. But you're not all doomed or anything. And to move to a mountain, it all depends. I would highly recommend researching your areas. Mountains are said to be safer areas. Like, for example, in the Bible, it says to flee to the mountains whenever you see these things happening. So it's probably a good idea, but it depends on your geography locally. You have to research your own local geography. Ears to hear, eyes to see, says Jay. Stephen King wrote a book or maybe a short story called The Mist. Yes, and that's what it's about. That's in the movie The Mist, you've got the Fantazoids, right? Which is another aspect of the plasma apocalypse. So when the world depressurizes, there is now an opening in our sky that before separated us from the heavenlies. Before it separated us from the fractalverse or space, right? Now, today, in today's world, we just look up at the backside of the dome, basically, of the sky, and we imagine that we're looking way off into the vastness of emptiness, when in reality, we're just looking at a blank wall that's dark on the inside, and it's got a few lights inside of it. That is separating us. Oh, thanks, Sage. Appreciate it. Let's see, what was I talking about? I totally forgot the question. All right, let me jump back in the chat. Pants on the ground says JayDreamerZ, who or what do you feel is responsible for who or what do you feel is responsible for setting all of this up to happen the way it does? That's a deep question, so I'm going to get deep on you, okay? The legends and the myths and the religions, to me, all indicate that it is the entity most of you would collectively call God. Okay, God set this up. God created this. Now, what is God to all of you? I leave that up to your own individual expressions and beliefs and perception filters and all of that wonderful stuff. But the ancient story says that it was this godlike being or entity or the architect, the originator, and that being split itself many times, and that the entire purpose behind all of it is to get to know ourselves. Basically, it's sort of a self-diagnostic that we're running. All right, let's see. Trying to catch back up here. Man, there's a lot. I'm sorry, I'm missing a lot. Knowledge 2020 says, hi, JayDreamerZ. Have you seen the weekend video? See it coming? I'm sure it's about the plasma apocalypse. I have seen that, and yes, I do see a lot of plasma apocalypse symbolism. Reports of unusual fog. Could it be depressurization? Not worldwide, or when it happens worldwide, you'll know. Believe me, when these events kick off, it's not going to be like any anomalous action in random parts of the world, okay? When these events of the plasma apocalypse happen, you will know. Everyone will know. There will be no questioning what is happening. It is the end of the world, so to speak, as we know it at least, right? So believe me, when you'll see little versions of these things happening, right? Little mini reset type things. But when the big one kicks off, everyone will suddenly realize what's going on. Those who don't will lose their minds because they won't be able to handle it, basically. The purple flame fire. Okay, cool. Fabio wants me to explain the purple flame fire. So if you look up a sodium vapor lamp, right? Basically you have an anode and a cathode, and what it does is it charges that sodium vapor that is in between them. It activates it, right? It ionizes it. So whenever our oceans get pulled up into the sky and the world depressurizes and the atmosphere turns into fog and mist, we will have a sodium vapor like canopy over our world. And in the middle, between Mount Meru, we have possibly, right? I haven't heard many of, like, I don't want to take credit or claim for, just natural things in the world, but I don't, it's hard for me to find other people who talk about the anode and the cathode as being the witnesses to Mount Meru on either side and how they create an electrical arc. And if you know people, please let me know. I'd love to like research other people's works and findings and stuff. But basically, there's an anode and a cathode of our world surrounding Mount Meru and the islands in the middle at the North Pole, and it creates an electrical arc between the two. These beams that shoot up become attracted to one another, and they create an electrical arc, or a flame, right? Or a light, and it becomes the light of the world. And the sodium vapor light happens to be extremely good. It's the best kind of light to use in fog because it pierces the fog and it allows people to see in the fog. And that's why they use sodium vapor lamps for streetlights and stuff like that, or they used to. Zarks says, JayDreamerZ, I've been following you for years now. Do you have any idea when this tempest could occur? Yeah, soon. Like, I'm not one of those people that I'm not a fan of people predicting when the end is coming. You know, I'm telling you, it's a high likelihood that it's on the way, because just looking at the past, right? Just looking at what's happened before time and time again, it's going to happen again. When is it going to happen? Every source I have ever seen talks about how you should not focus on when it is going to happen. You should live your life as if it was happening this year, right? And if it doesn't happen this year, everybody celebrates and they light fireworks and exchange presents and all. We get our holidays and stuff. But I do not recommend trying to figure out the day that this is going to happen. It's counterintuitive to the entire process, right? It's supposed to be a surprise, basically. And I have no idea. I'm just being honest. I have no idea what day this is going to happen. I have no idea what year this is going to happen. I am a reader of the signs and the omens. I'm listening to the world. If you want to ask anyone when it's going to happen, ask the world. Pay attention to the world, because the world will give you signs and let you know. The world is your clock, basically. How long do we have? We just talked about that question too. Seeking Hope says, Jay, thank you for talking faster than most. You're welcome. I do it purposefully because I can't watch YouTube videos at normal speed because I feel like I'm underwater. I feel like everyone's talking in slow motion, you know? So even I speed up myself so that I can get all the information as fast as I can. You know what I mean? I don't want to talk too fast like the Micro Machines guy. But yeah, the slow talk, God, that's boring for me. Many things are boring, actually. You know what's crazy? I was showing my son some video from the Electric Universe, or maybe the Thunderbolts Project or something like that. And I just had him watch it for like 1 minute. And I'm like, can you tell me what they just said? He's like, no. I'm like, is it boring? He goes, yeah. I'm like, exactly. Doesn't that suck? They're talking about the same things that your dad talks about, but they talk about it in a very boring, academically minded kind of, I'm a teacher kind of method. You know what I mean? So I try to keep these things in mind. My experiences when I watch YouTube, I'm sure other people's have similar ones. So I try to do my best to like streamline things for you, the viewers. Alex says, you touched on the color spectrum and the lamp when you did your blue didn't exist presentation. Excellent. Thank you, Alex. So yes, I did a whole presentation called Blue Didn't Exist, and that talks about the sodium vapor lamp, basically. All right, let me jump back in the chat. I'm so sorry. I'm missing a lot of comments. I can see them all. They're just going so fast. Just repeat your question if you'd like. How much time between color changes? An eon, an age, is typically, that's literally what that's called. That's an age, that's an eon, that's an epoch. Those are all the same thing. Eon flux, remember that? Same type of deal. All right, let's see. Good vibes to Edward in Vancouver. Good to see you. Arctic Timberwolf, good to see you. Jeff says, do volcanoes play a role in starting off any of these events? No, volcanoes do not start these events off. It is beyond the volcanoes. The volcanoes going off are a byproduct of what is happening to the Earth's electromagnetic field. The Earth's electromagnetic field being in flux, right? So up and down, that would be normal, okay? That would be your normal, whatever world you live in, blue sky or red sky. When the electromagnetics are up and down, that's normal. When they start to tilt, when they start to shift and wobble and go into flux, and then they eventually reach that point when they go off to the side and hit the neutral point, that's whenever the world starts to go really crazy. So with the more flux, with the increase of flux of the electromagnetic field, you will have a corresponding increase in the amount of volcanoes that are going off, because the inside of the world is starting to give off its pressure, right? I mean, that makes sense logically. If the cataclysm comes about because of our surface level of our world depressurizing, then naturally the inner world would have to depressurize the most and get all of its pressure out, right? And which would in turn erupt a lot of volcanoes, I believe. All right, so we got Mr. C in the chat who says, JayDreamerZ, what do you think about the Phoenix event that's been described by Archaics? I found you through him. I'm not sure. I don't know a lot about it. I'm going to be honest. There's a lot of things that he talks about that it's almost like when he's talking, like I can relate, okay, to what I'm about to tell you. But when Jason from Archaics is giving his presentations and stuff, I find that quite often he's speaking in a way as if everyone is on board and knows exactly all the vocabulary and stuff. And we've all visited the website and we've all looked at things and we're all researching. I'm not. I'm just going to be honest. Like he's been on my channel. I like his information because I feel like it resonates with a lot of my plasma apocalypse information, especially the Phoenix and stuff like that. But like, I've never heard him talk about what the Phoenix actually is. I think it's the blue beam that shoots up over Mount Meru and it creates a thunderbird in the sky. It creates a Phoenix bird. It creates all kinds of stuff. So I'm not sure. I'm not totally sure. I like his stories. I like where he's going. I feel like there's a lot of related information there. But man, yeah, I don't fully understand a lot of it, which is why I wanted to have him on my channel too, so I can, ask questions and stuff and see what it is exactly. So I don't know a lot about his Phoenix thing, honestly. Maya says, Jay, what do you think will happen to the moon? Oh, the moon's going to split in half. Like, some other things too. Hold on. I have had many visions and dreams about the moon crumbling away and falling to earth. Yes, very good. Excellent. Sweet. Okay. So, in short, what we see in the sky that we call the moon is not the moon. It's just an image of what we call the moon. Okay. It's an image of something else that's projected into the sky. It's light. It's plasma. Right? It is up there in the sky. It's two-dimensional. It is not three-dimensional. It is not a planet. It's not a rock that's just floating dangerously close to our world. It's a light. And what we see is just a projection of a physical reality of what we call the moon, which is probably, I'm guessing, a portion of our own dome above us, basically. And when things happen to our dome above us, things will happen to the moon that we see in the sky, right? Quite often you'll see red, like whenever the moon goes through eclipses and stuff, you see that red. That's a little glimpse of the sky beyond our sky because it's red. That plasma all the way around our world is red. It's red colored. It's probably ionized hydrogen, is my guess. The Prophet Muhammad talked about how the moon split and that the moon will split again one day as a prophecy. And some people believe that the moon will actually fall to Earth. If that does happen, it would not be the image that you see in the sky, but it would be that piece of the dome actually breaking off and falling down to the Earth. Good question. And also, if it's the summer apocalypse, the moon will start turning blue. So we'll keep an eye out for that one too. All right, we got Jake who says, that's genius. Thank you. Appreciate it. I did a video about the word genius too. Deleted Truth says, Jay, how about wormwood mentioned in the Bible? Yes, so wormwood is another object, a heavenly object that falls down to the world, and it's seen as causing the waters of the world to turn bitter. When it says bitter, it can mean poisonous, but it can also mean salty, right? It can mean polluted in any form. Alex says, will the depressurization event be like if somebody smashes a plane window but on a worldwide scale? Yes, absolutely, totally. Like it's very similar to that, right? So it's just depressurizing. So if you want to get a feel for what it's like, watch a video of planes, airplane cabins depressurizing and see what happens to them. What we will experience will be very similar, but on a much larger, grander scale, right? Janine Tott says, Jay, could you explain why the moon is becoming exceptionally bright like the sun? Yes. The full moon that we had was bright during the day. Yes. Okay. So one possibility of why or how the moon and the sun are both getting brighter, as are probably the stars themselves in the sky, I'm guessing. I have noticed. Have you guys noticed this? That when you look at the night sky lately, it seems to be way more crisp and clear. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to explain, but anyway, the moon is getting brighter and the sun, I believe, is getting brighter too. If that's the case, then what's happening is above the dome of the sky or our world or the firmament above us, right? We've got that plasma that is swirling around and circling around. The plasma itself is repelled by the electromagnetic force. So it confines to the form, which is spherical or a dome, basically a dome shape. However, the light from the plasma is not blocked off by the electromagnetic barrier or the physical barrier, because the physical barrier is clear, like glass or like ice. The light from the plasma may pass through, hitting the dome, and then being redirected appropriately, however, whatever the angle that it hits the dome at. That light comes in and creates a focal point that redistributes what we call daylight. The focal point is what we call the sun. Now, whenever the source, which is the plasma above our world, whenever like I said, it's pulsating, which is what gives us our seasons, which is why the sun goes out and it comes in. When the sun, whenever it's pulsating like that and it goes out, that's wintertime. That's whenever the sun is way around the edges towards the horizon. Whenever it pulsates and it comes in and it retracts, that's whenever the sun makes a small circle and goes towards the North Pole. So whenever it retracts even more, that's whenever you're going to see the sun starting to change color and turn blue. And the moon reciprocates that. The moon also starts to turn blue. That's why we have that saying, once in a blue moon. It's talking about the apocalypse. It's not talking about some harvest moon that happens every year and it's sort of blue, but not really blue. I'm talking about a blue moon. Alex says, it feels like it's getting closer with time speeding up. I agree. Mr. C says, JayDreamerZ, I believe that between you and Jason, you have a fairly accurate timeline and description of what's going to happen and what has happened in the past. I hope you two get together soon. We have, and I recommend everyone that watches my channel, if you're here from Jason's channel, go check out my videos, right? Actually, no, I'm not going to say that. There's going to be lots of people who have no idea that he's already been on my channel and already been a guest and stuff. So I would just humbly say, okay, cool, thank you. Awesome. Hamad Afakir says, JayDreamerZ, hey Jay, isn't the apocalypse about Judgment Day? Yes. Is it not then that the whole world will be judged by God, who goes to paradise and hell? Okay, so I think I understand your question. This is Judgment Day. Okay, this is what is affectionately known in many of the religions as Judgment Day. This is the day that people's souls are judged, basically. Now that happens from many different perspectives. People view this in different ways, but this is seen as being the God of this world is judging everybody. Some people get sucked up. Society is reset. The people who are left behind all seem to have really good energy, all be very positive and good vibes. So they're seen as being the chosen ones because they're so good. But in reality, it's the energy of the earth itself that is inundated with positive energy. So it has an effect on the people who have survived. You see what I mean? Tracy Hill says, Jay, I've been saying this. Right on, right on. Matthew Olivia says, hello, Jay and Truth Seekers. I didn't know a live show was on. I was watching one of Jay's old video, The Two Illuminati. Very interesting. Yep, we're live. I do like the Two Illuminati one. However, I find that particular concept leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. A lot of people can't handle the Two Illuminati. A lot of people don't want there to be any kind of association with the Illuminati or people who are in the know or anybody that knows anything. They want them to be the bad guys, right? All of them. It's like there's this general consensus that anybody who has occult information or information that most others are not privy to, that they're somehow sneaky and deceptive and they have, they have selfish motives and whatnot. I don't believe that. I believe that there are two sides to everything. There's a good Illuminati and there's a bad Illuminati. And I talk about that in that video. Karen Reeves says, Jason Brashears thinks very highly of you. Awesome. Well, that's good to hear. I totally recommend his channel too. I think it's an awesome channel. I would like to see him. Okay, Jason, I'm sorry, bro, if you're watching, but I just want to give you my perspective as somebody that does watch your channel, and I get a lot of people from your channel too. I highly recommend. I don't know, maybe I just don't watch enough. You know what I mean? But I do my own thing, and so does Jason. I'm sure he's not watching all my videos either. But it would help me and people like me if he did some like real basic elementary kind of like, not really a question and answers, I guess, or maybe have questions written down in way ahead of time. Because when he does his questions and answers, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like me right now. I'm missing all kinds of questions in the chat. It's super not easy to catch up with people whenever there's so many people chatting or whatever. All right, cool. Thank you, Alex, for putting up the link so that people can check out Jason Brashears on my channel. JayDreamerZ, have you noticed time speeding up? Yes. And during the apocalypse, is time going to speed up or slow down? Okay, good question. So let's talk about time real quick. Our local concept, or my local concept of time, is basically based on the sun. Okay, like how fast that sun circles back around gives us our concept of time. We're comparing how long events happen in comparison to where that sunlight is, or where that focal point in the sky is, right? I'm not a big believer in, like, you know, it's hard to explain, like, just the concept of time. I feel like people treat the concept of time very mystically. And I'm not so mystical with my concept of time. I see time as being all at once, that there is no time at all, that everything is, there's no separation, right? So if you get really deep with the creation story of the universe, right? Originally, there was no separation between anything. And if there's no separation between anything, which is the ultimate reality because all is one, you can't have time. Time is an illusion. You know what I mean? So you can't have this event is separated from this event. It's all happening all at one time, like a DVD, right? The whole movie is on the DVD. It's right here. That is your time scale. It's all right there, all in one place. But when you put it in, you play it out scene by scene, then it appears like there's time, but there's really not. It's all right there, all at the same time on the DVD. Ruby Speaks says, but it's taken me time to fully understand Jay's perspective. Oh, right on. That's fine. Like, I don't insist that other people believe my perspective or see things from my perspective or anything. I want you to see things from your perspective. I am just saying, here's what I saw. Like, I'm a scout, okay? I'm going out ahead of everybody to scout out the land, and I'm like bringing a report back. Like, hey, here's what I saw. That's from my perspective, okay? Take what you would like from that, add that to the collective of your experience, but it's my perspective. You know what I mean? If it helps you, awesome. If it doesn't, that's fine too. Find something that helps you, I would recommend. Time Bandits, that's a good one. Ooh. I don't know a lot of people that remember Time Bandits. All right, cool. So let me get back to the story. Let's recap the plasma apocalypse, okay? So we're going to go through, and we have gone through, an electromagnetic shift, right? For example, right now, what we call the North Pole, where our compasses are pointing to, is actually the southernmost direction. So what we call the North Pole is actually the South Pole, which means at some point in time, it was correct. At some point in time, that was the North Pole. But whenever everything shifted, that became the magnetic South Pole. But we didn't change the name. We continued to call it the North Pole. You see what I mean? All right, so here's what happens. We're going through an electromagnetic shift, right? When we hit the neutral point, that electromagnetic barrier disappears, which allows all of the pressure that's built up inside of our world to go all the way up to the apex of our world and blow the roof out of our world, creating a hole in the sky, right? What that does is it lets out all of our atmosphere. Not all of it. I don't want to say all of it, okay? It's a lot of it, okay, gets sucked out. All that pressure is released until it reaches equilibrium. As that atmosphere is being sucked out, Archimedes' principle talks about how if you have, like, he uses a bathtub, and whenever you put something into the bathtub, however much water is displaced from the bathtub, which is equal to, or however much fluid is displaced from the bathtub. I'm just using a bathtub, right? Because that's how they teach it in schools. But however much atmosphere or fluid from our atmosphere is displaced and leaves our world and gets sucked out, that will be equal to a force, a new increased buoyancy force, or a buoyant force that is currently in our world now. Buoyancy is in our world now, but it's just a weaker form. That form will be strengthened during this actual depressurization event, causing things to float because of the buoyancy that is lifting them up from underneath, basically. Then it will settle down, right? As it starts to as it starts to equalize or reach equilibrium, right? Those objects will slowly start to float back down as they become more dense once again, and that buoyancy lessens a bit. However, because so much has already escaped, when that dome goes back up, when that electromagnetic barrier or protective barrier goes back up over our world, it now seals us in under those new conditions, less buoyant conditions, which means, boom, you're super strong now. Because everything else weighs less. You still have the same muscles. Everything else weighs a lot less. You'll be able to jump super far, run super fast, pick up heavy objects. It's like you're Superman. All right, jumping back in the chat. Joey says, both Jay and Jason bring good things to the table. Right on. BB says, all other species see time differently. Oh, also I want to say, speaking of archaics, we both have a pretty sweet website. I've checked his out. It looks like he's made a lot of improvements to it. Archaics.com and then JayDreamerZ.com as well. My website, his is a lot more words and stuff and a lot more script and text on the screen. I'm not trying to downplay it at all. I'm just letting you know the differences. Mine is more like visual, if I was to describe it that way. It's very visual. There's a lot of interactive aspects to my website and stuff like that. But check them both out because they're both pretty sweet and I feel like they could be helpful to the right people. LJ says, Jay, can you talk a bit about the physical traits of the survivors? Yeah, sure, for sure. All right, so I'm just going to, whatever comes off the top of my head, right? Physical traits of the survivors. First and foremost, super strength for many of you, okay? The world will be less buoyant, less dense, or I'm sorry, more buoyant and less dense. And you'll have super strength, essentially. What did you say? I'm sorry, the physical traits? Oh, okay, so people will probably grow bigger, okay? So all that pressure has been released, which means that people and plants and animals and everything will start growing bigger and taller. Some of us who have survived, who have already gone through puberty and stuff, won't grow as tall as your children will. They'll be born into those new conditions. They will become giants, and they will grow big enough to eventually be able to mate, basically, if they so choose, with the visitors that are coming from other places who are also gigantic in stature. So everything gets bigger. People will become bigger. The average size of humanity will become way bigger. Our size that we are now will be considered an anomaly. They will tell legends and stories and myths about the time when the tiny people ruled the world, basically, which is us today. All right, Mr. C said, JayDreamerZ, so that the hole in the atmosphere could contribute to the flash freezing of things like the mammoths. Yes, absolutely. So that when the world depressurizes and that hole opens up in the sky, right? It creates a vortex of wind. This gives rise to the tempest, right? Suddenly there is low pressure system everywhere, right? Or maybe like no pressure system. I don't know what to call it. But it creates a worldwide storm that circles around the North Pole. The North Pole right in the middle will be the eye of the storm. So probably the most calm place, while all hell is breaking loose. And damn, what was the question? Hold on. Oh, the flash freezing, right? So things will get sucked up, just like in a tornado, just like Dorothy going to Oz or whatnot. But then those things that don't get sucked out, they will go right back around and shoot straight back down towards the ground, which means there's some places that will have hurricane force winds blowing down on top of you, freezing cold air from high up in the atmosphere and creating and giving us a brand new Arctic circle. Right, and it will flash freeze anything that it touches, basically. So that's totally what I think happened to the mammoths, and the mammoths probably came up out of the center portion of our world, which is why you find so many mammoths in a total circle around the Arctic Circle. You know what I mean? You don't find a lot of mammoths in other places. They can be found in other places, but the majority of the mammoth bones and carcasses and stuff have been right around the Arctic Circle, Alaska, Siberia, those areas. And that's where that wind shear shoots back down. All right, Say No says, JayDreamerZ, have you heard of black goo? Yeah, and does plasma have any relation to it? I'm not exactly sure what black goo is yet. I'm still kind of wondering about the black goo. I have some ideas, but I'm not comfortable talking about them yet, just because it's just total speculation. Basically, I don't have like a good solid theory yet, basically. All right, so Edward says, JayDreamerZ, you mean like the movie character Carter? Yes, John Carter of Mars. Isn't he powerful because he goes to a different planet with less gravity than Earth? Yeah, absolutely. Or you could say, instead of saying less gravity than Earth, you could say more buoyancy than Earth. Works just fine either way. Whatever floats your boat. Whatever keeps your boat afloat, quite actually. Alex says, I love your website, Jay. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Slumberland, sweet. That was the last Truth in Movies we did. Slumberland was awesome. I got cut off. I tried to do Slumberland initially, but after 15 minutes, the live stream just stopped for some reason. Super Ducky says, JayDreamerZ, did you watch any lectures of Mark Passio, Natural Law? I've not heard of anybody named Mark Passio yet. Tracy Hill says, Jay, how long from the beginning to the end? Feet on the ground. I'm not sure what you're asking me. How long from the beginning to the end? You'll have to rephrase the question. Sorry. You're super welcome, Tracy. Dan Juan says, JayDreamerZ, the movie Cell is free on YouTube. Okay, cool. I was disappointed to hear that you refer to your time as an apocalypse messenger as no different to that of a unfulfilling door salesman. Well, I hear you. Don't get me wrong. I love doing YouTube. I love being JayDreamerZ. I love my personality and my little role that I have in this, in the modern world. But if you compare that to what you can be, to the potential that we all have in the post-apocalyptic world, right? It's night and day. It's night and day difference, basically. All right, jumping back into the chat here, we got, let's see. Sarah says, JayDreamerZ, is there a safer area to be at when this time happens? The safest area will be inside of the Earth at the North Pole, inside of Mount Meru. So, the question is, do you plan on going there? If not, you'll have to find a secondary option. Alex says, you should totally do a Truth in Movies of Wizard of Oz. I have been thinking about that. That's probably going to happen. Mr. C says, JayDreamerZ, the way you describe both yours and Jason points of reference and teaching styles is exactly what I think between the two of you. You have nailed it. I think that's great. I think that, we sort of balance one another out in that aspect, that I'm very creative and very full of the fantastic and, images and examples and stuff like that. And then he's very structural, it seems. You know what I mean? He's very, very much oriented towards timelines and math and dates and things like that. And I don't care. I was like, it's nice. I wish I cared that much about numbers and years that things happened. I just don't care. Like, it's not anything I'm interested in. I'm interested to hear it and to learn about it. But my thing is the fantastic. My thing is movies and fiction and books and fantasy and talking about the strange and the fringe and superpowers and zombies and how all of the things that we consider to be made up fictitious events that we basically teach children are not real and they don't exist and they cannot exist, how they can and how they have. And by extension, how one day they will. Boom. Sage says, JayDreamerZ, go watch Harold Kautz. There are two kinds of black goo. Okay, thank you. All right, back in the chat, we got Don Juan who says, JayDreamerZ, the cell. Okay, I read that one, my bad. Alan McClure says, Jay, did you take a look at the Testament of Solomon's magic number or number of God, Emmanuel, whose number is 644? Nah, Alan, I'm not a numbers person. I'm a letters person, right? That's just me. I don't like numbers at all. I'm not a numbers person. I don't like math. I don't like adding. I don't like subtracting. I don't want to do any of that kind of garbage at all. I mean, it's not garbage. It's awesome. It's useful. It's just not me. I'm not that kind of person. Ask me about letters. I'll tell you everything. Ask me about words and languages and stuff. We can have a chat. If you ask me about numerology, I'm just gonna be like, okay. I've blocked some people from just putting nothing but numerology in the chat time and time again. Every word that I say, all of a sudden people are just typing in, oh, here's the numerological equivalent of hat on JayDreamer's head or whatever. And I'm just like, that's definitely, I don't get that. I don't get it. I mean, I get it. It's just not my thing. Alex says, I was watching when it cut off the other day. Okay. Let's see, trying to catch back up here. How long historically did the reset take? How long does it take? I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. Are you asking like, how long will the world depressurize for? How long does that depressurization, you know what I mean? Because the reset is a process. The reset is from age to age. That's the reset. You're in the reset right now. You just are used to it. You have no idea because you were born in the reset. You grew up in the reset, and now you don't call it the reset. You just call it normal life. You know what I mean? But it is an age. It's an eon. It's an epoch. It's an era. It is the time that the blue beam arrives to the time that the blue beam leaves, or inversely, the time that the blue beam has been gone to the time that it arrives. That is the age and the reset. How long does it take for the world to depressurize? My guess is about 30 minutes. That's my best guess. It could be quicker than that. It could be 3 minutes. I'm leaning towards about 30, about a half an hour. And then the legends talk about how there will be no light. The sun will be gone for 3 days. There'll be 3 days of darkness and 3 nights. Tracy Hill says, Jay, sorry from we lose gravity until we get it back. I have no idea what you're trying to say. Sorry. Sage says, JayDreamerZ, imagination is a realm. Right on. All right, cool. I don't see any more questions. Let me get back to summing up the plasma apocalypse until I see something highlighted in the chat. Okay, so let's start over. Boom, we got signs and omens. Those signs and omens reflect what is happening electromagnetically in our world. Everything starts going into flux. So in the world you live in, if you'd like to know when the apocalypse is going to happen, you have to pay attention to the world that you live in. When you see things quickly start changing and quickly start going into flux compared to what used to be considered normal, then you can know that the apocalypse is soon on the way. Right? And there are various signs and omens that you can look for. I recommend researching, start with your favorite religion and research prophecies and ancient religions. Or, it doesn't really matter where you start as long as you start somewhere and start researching. If you seek, you shall find. I totally believe in that. All right. So you got signs and omens that are indicating that the world is going into flux electromagnetically. And then the day will come where, well, you've got the 2 apocalypses, right? So in one, the sun gets further and further away each winter for 3 successive winters until eventually it disappears, which gives rise to Fimbulwinter, or the Great Winter, the 3 years winter without interruption. On the opposite end of the spectrum, during the summertime apocalypse, or the summer solstice, you have the sun getting hotter and hotter and hotter. These are the signs that you can look for. You can see the color spectrum changing if you pay attention and watch it, right? Moonlight to me is blue. Like, I know some people think it's white, but go outside and look at the light that's hitting any object. Like, I'm seeing a lot of blue in the moonlight. I'm just saying. So anyways, that happens. The world goes through its neutral point, right? The dome goes down, the electromagnetic dome, the invisible portion of the dome goes down, which causes the physical portion of the dome to burst and to break open, right? All that pressure pushes up against it and it explodes and everything seeps out. Our atmosphere seeps out, gets sucked outwards, which increases the buoyant force underneath us, which causes things to float. Things will be floating around. The lights will be turned off. The only lights that you'll see, if you have glow sticks or stuff, that could work out. But you'll see fires and explosions. You'll see the plasma in the sky. You'll see the Valkyries and the heavenly angels and beings, or whatever you would like to see them as. Ultimately, that's how you'll see them. Whatever your perception filter dictates, that's what you're going to imagine is up there. So you'll see those lights in the sky. They will be swirling in from the main hole in the sky. Also, I believe that pressure not only is going to blow one main hole in the roof of the world, but I have a theory that all of those stars, or all those little points of focus that we call stars, are created by craters in the dome above us. That they do this exact same thing that creates the sun, except for on smaller scales. So it creates little tiny mini suns, basically. If that's true, those craters on our dome from electromagnetic scarring, or electric scarring, basically, those craters are weak points, and those would blow out too, which means any place that you see a star will all of a sudden have a trail behind it as plasma comes down into our world. And those trails will swirl around. It look like star trails, basically, but time-lapse style. All right, so anyways, the world depressurizes, increased buoyancy causes things to float. The air will be being sucked out. Okay, so if you're in a bedroom or something, like, there's a good chance that if you have glass windows, they'll probably explode outwards and all the air will rush out. It'll be difficult to breathe. I recommend grabbing some oxygen. I mean, that might be helpful. Gas mask also could be helpful. I put something on my community tab, just my own little go bag. So if you have recommendations of how to prepare or what items that you suggest people bring or prep for, go to my community tab and feel free to join in that conversation. All right, so the world depressurizes, everything starts to get sucked up. At the same time, a hole just opened up in our sky, which is now a portal. It is now a place of crossing over from one world into other worlds, or from other worlds into our world, right? That is the time when aliens arrive. So will we have an alien invasion? Yeah, for sure. There will definitely be an alien invasion, okay? History has shown us that alien invasions have happened time and time and time again. Whatever you would like to call aliens, you can see it religiously, you can see it spiritually, you can see it whatever you, little green men, I don't care how you see it. Alien beings, alien entities, creatures, animals, insects, people from other places will float down into this realm. Some purposefully, some not purposefully, but they will enter by the thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, floating down into this world to make for themselves a brand new home. And those are what I call Fantazoids. All right, jumping back in the chat, we got Pants on the Ground who says, JayDreamerZ, do you think the water will flow? Will the water flow in as well? No. Good question. So every other cycle, water, our world is inundated with water and there's a flood. Every other cycle after that, our world's water supply is taken away. The oceans, or that flood water, is taken away. That water's dirty anyways. You know, it needs to be switched out, basically. And all the ocean's water will get sucked up because there's an increased buoyancy factor. So any waves that are being created will just constantly rise. They'll just keep going up and up and up. And all the ocean's water, most of it, lots of it, right, will get sucked out. We won't have an ocean anymore. Where you used to have an ocean, you will have swamp until it dries up and becomes a desert. And then you'll have a desert world wherever there used to be ocean, basically. All right, so Coco June says, JayDreamerZ, have you noticed the moon setting around 11 o'clock in the morning? That's usually when I wake up, so no, I'm not really out around that time. I'm just kidding. I don't usually wake up at 11. I'd like to. I'd like to, but when you're a dad, you got to wake up early. There's also been a rainbow horizon in the past few days, sending love and light from the Bronx. Hey, right on, the Bronx. Love and light right back to you. Alex says, I saw your little survival kit so far. Right on. Good to see that. We also have Ellie S, who says, JayDreamerZ, I've heard all of the truthers out there for the past 2 years. I like your world better. I'm 60-0. Makes me feel like a kid again. I love it. Excellent. Good. Ellie, this is something that I feel is exciting, right? I like to talk about all of the benefits to the plasma apocalypse. I don't just like to tell people, listen, not you, but everybody listen. The apocalypse is known. Okay. It's known. I mean, you could just look around. There are many channels, many people, thousands of people who all know. Every religion has their form of the apocalypse. They all talk about the apocalypse. I'm going to skip forward in the chat too so I can catch up. But the apocalypse is known, okay? The only entity that does not know of the apocalypse, allegedly, is modern academics. They do not teach this, and they will not teach this, and they don't want to teach this because they want it to happen. And the more people that know about it, the less likely it is to actually happen. So they want it to happen. They're not going to teach about it. They don't want you to prepare. They don't want you to do things to prevent it. They want it to happen so that they can escape and leave this world so that they don't keep dying and going through reincarnation cycles or trying to figure out other ways of extending their lives, right? They don't want to die. I don't blame them. Damn, I forgot the question. Hold on. Fudge. I totally forgot. Sometimes I go off on tangents and I totally forget what the actual question was. All right, well, let's just move forward. I'm sorry. Hamad says, JayDreamerZ. Damn, I really want to remember that question, though. Who was that? Oh, that's right. It was Ellie. Okay, hold on. I'm sorry, Hamad. Let me go back to Ellie. All right, so Ellie's talking about how she feels older because she's 60, right? I'm assuming you're a woman. I don't know. But she feels older. Many of you feel older, and it sucks. It sucks to grow old. It sucks to have your body deteriorate and things stop working, or, you know what I mean? You get sicknesses or you got aches and pains and all this stuff because your spirit is still young. We live during the time of a short lifespan. That's not normal. That's not right. That's not the way it was. So many of you will return. Your youth will be returned to you. Okay? Good news. Super good news. Your vitality, along with your youth, physical youth of the body, will be returned. Okay? To many. Your vitality, meaning your spirit, right? It's not like you'll just be all tired and old, but you'll have a younger body. No, you're energized. The world will be energized, and the world will be charged up on the surface level where we are when the energy comes out of the hollows of the earth. So that is something to look forward to. I don't like everyone that talks about the apocalypse, they make it seem like it's just there's no bonus. You know what I mean? There's got to be a bonus. There's got to be something to it. Like in the past, we talked about and learned about the golden age and the time when everything was great and the world was filled with positivity and people lived for a long time and people had superpowers and all of this wonderful byproducts that comes with being a survivor of the apocalyptic event. I don't find a lot of people talking about those things. Everyone just talks, they want to scare everybody and just say, oh, the world's going to end, bro. And they're trying to hide it from you. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't like to come from that perspective at all. There's good news behind the bad. It's balanced, I promise. Jesse Williams says, Jay, do you think the entities that cause the apocalypse to happen is like the sorting hat and assign people to the proper universe? Yeah, I think that's a good analogy. Sure, I like that one. KGB, good to see you. Thanks for the support. Sage, thank you also. Pants on the Ground says, JayDreamerZ, will Fantazoids take advantage of the upsurge in plasma and magneto-electric energy during the apocalypse? Well, I don't know what you mean by take advantage of it, but yeah, wouldn't you? Right? If you could take advantage of it, I mean, I'm going to fully. Like I fully intend on taking advantage of all of the brand new environmental conditions that bequeath unto people like us positive attributes. I accept full on. I deserve that, as a matter of fact. Many of you do. Say No says, JayDreamerZ, have you heard of the Santilli telescope? If not, look them up. They're very interesting. Okay, cool. I've not heard of that, actually. I may have heard of it, but it's a telescope? I don't know. LES says 60 to 0 means minus 0. Okay, I feel 6. Even the Bible calls us children, yes, and we are a baby world. Yes, and not only that, but in the Bible, it talks about how in those days, speaking about the future after the reset happens, that a child will be counted as a child up until 100 years old. So most every single person who is watching right now, in comparison to the world changes that we're about to go through, in comparison to those future lifespans, your average future lifespans, you're a kid, you're a child, you're a baby, you're an adolescent, you're probably prepubescent in comparison. I mean, it doesn't matter if you are or you're not, but in comparison to what is to come and what once was, you are a child. We are a world full and filled with children, which might help to explain why things are so crazy. Hamed says, JayDreamerZ, so is this whole plasma apocalypse just a repetition of life? Is it because of this that we have deja vu? I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but yeah, everything is repeating for sure. There's the law of cycles, so everything is moving in cycles. I wouldn't say that it's a cycle like a circle, because a circle is stagnant. It doesn't go anywhere. It just goes around, right? But a spiral or a vortex goes in circles as it progresses. You see what I'm saying? So it covers everything as it grows. We're constantly growing collectively, I like to believe. Yin Caples. Hey, what's up, Yin? Says, Jay, spot on about the child at 100 years old. Right on. All right, sweet. All right, so let me just see if I can finish up the recap. So the world depressurizes, increased buoyancy factor causes everything to float for a short time until equilibrium, in which things float back down, right? This is why you can have fallen beings that fall from the sky and they don't splat and die instantly. You know what I mean? Because they're not falling, they're floating. They're floating down. They're falling slowly back down to the ground. Just like in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, where Charlie and his grandpa, you know, they were like in that bubble area, and then when they burped, they were like sort of floating back down. Kind of the same principle, basically. All right, so anyways, when things float back down, that's also whenever that electromagnetic barrier, as long as it's still down, other creatures, alien creatures, can now come into our world, and they do come into our world. So at first, survivors will be afraid. Because people normally are afraid of what they don't understand. They're afraid of things that they are foreign to them. They're afraid of aliens. I mean, we're trained to shoot whatever aliens we see. That's almost instinctual because it's been put into us by society. In all of the movies and stuff, you know what I mean? Like, they basically indicate that aliens, if they arrive, it's bad news. Okay, like, I'm impartial. I don't think that just because somebody arrives that it's bad news. It just means that something's changing, right? That a change is happening. And most people are afraid of change. So this is going to be a terrifying event to some people who are afraid of change. But that's whenever the aliens arrive. That's when we have an alien invasion. Also, we have the Holy Spirit, as it's known in the Bible, being breathed upon the entire world, which gives rise to zombies, right? The world will go through what I call a time of no death, where it is so energetically charged that you cannot die, that nothing can actually die. That if something gets maimed to the point or hurt to the point where it normally would die under these conditions, it won't in the next world. It regenerates, it fixes itself, it continues on. Because it's very difficult to die. In order for something to die in the future, during the time of no death, basically it has to have its brain destroyed or its spinal cord severed, which is why oftentimes in the movies that's portrayed as you have to cut off its head or you need a headshot or you know what I mean? Stuff like that. It's the time of no death where everything's regenerating, which also might help to explain why there was so much torture during certain ages and times past, right? They had a lot of, like, torture was abnormally normal. You know what I mean? During certain ages of our world, in our history, like, torture's all over. They were torturing people in the middle of the street in some cases, and it was just normal. It was an event. Why? You know what I mean? Why torture as opposed to just the death penalty? Well, what if they can't die? So torture becomes the worst thing that a person can suffer. You know what I mean? Hamed says, JayDreamerZ, how come that some people feel that it's not the first time that they are living this life, like they've been here before? Probably because they've been here before. Pants on the Ground says, JayDreamerZ, any thoughts on why our magic abilities are so weak? Yes, because magic, all right, so let me go back to magic. The root of the word magic is related to the word magnet, and magic itself is related to electromagnetism and understanding things that other people don't. It's esoteric knowledge and using that knowledge to change the world that you live in, right? To change your circumstances, yourself, others, whatever it may be. That is magic. The electromagnetics of our world is being sucked down into the hollow recesses of our world as we speak. So it's just like our world is a bathtub and the magic is the water in the bathtub. And somebody has pulled the plug because those blue beams have retracted and they have gone down into the inner recesses to charge, right? So all of the electromagnetic magic is also dissipating in our world. It's disappearing. Magic is going away. There's only a few vortices, little whirlpools of magic here and there from time to time. So we catch glimpses of it. But for the most part, it's being drained down into the inner recesses, collected, gathered, and charged to be redistributed back up to us during the time of the Golden Age. So the world to come will be way more magical. Literally, actually, physically magical. I'm not talking about like, oh, a wonderful place to live. Yeah, I mean, in some aspects, it will be a wonderful place to live. But I'm talking about real, actual magic, okay? Real manipulation of the ether itself and your spirit energy itself. Everything's going to become extremely amplified. And a lot of things will start to make sense to many of you because your spirit, your spirit and your soul and your chakras and all those types of words that describe your energy, right? Your chi, your han, etc. It becomes amplified. It becomes more in tune with the energies around it. Right now, we're very cut off from the energies around us. Many people have such a weak spirit that it can't even escape the body. Their spirit is in their body, and so they associate their body with their spirit. So they believe that their body is their spirit, that they are their body. You know what I mean? But in the world to come, your spirit becomes so amplified that you become aware of things beyond your body, and therefore able to manipulate them, possibly. All right, cool. So we talked about the Fantazoids coming down, the aliens coming down into our world, etc. I also did mention that zombies are real. Okay, zombies are not fiction at all. Not in my book. And this is my world. Okay, in my world, zombies are a real fact. Okay, evident in all throughout history. Okay, there has been many stories about the dead being resurrected and coming back to life. There are stories about skeletons regrowing their sinews, their muscles, their skin, all of that stuff on various scales. Okay, I mean, I'm talking about skeletal zombies. I'm talking about people who just recently died who come back to life. Right, that happens in our world today. We just don't call them zombies. The reason for that is because those who are resurrected in the world to come, many of those people, I believe, will not have their original spirit. The body is resurrected, okay? That DNA and all the little building blocks that make life will become re-energized, and they will regenerate. They will continue to make things. They'll just start, it's the time of no death, right? So the bodies restructure themselves, but what spirit is in those bodies is dependent upon the energy around the blueprints or the DNA or the body itself, right? The bones, etc. Alex says, I feel trapped in my body, Jay, and can only seem to escape it in my dreams. Well, okay. I mean, that sucks. I don't know what to say to that. I wouldn't say you're trapped. I mean, you could look at it like you're trapped. I don't recommend that. You know, that's like saying I'm trapped in my car. You know what I mean? Like, you could get out of the car and go drive a different car, and just like it depends on how you look at things. It all depends on perspective. Some people might feel trapped in their bodies. Some people might feel trapped in the earth. But if you are able to step outside of your own limited perspective of time and how fast our time cycles go, being that we live such short lives, right? So everything feels like it's going very quickly. If you were able to live for thousands upon thousands of years, you'd probably feel less trapped because you would be more aware of how much more time you actually have. You know what I mean? But I get it. I get what you're saying. Jake says, JayDreamerZ, Highlander 2 goes well with what you're talking about. Video, please. Oh, you want to do Truth in Movies, Highlander 2? Okay, possibly. BB says, Jay, how do you think the zombie apocalypse will take place? Spiritual, organic, or supernatural? Literal, actual, physical, dead people coming back to life. That's how I mean that. Okay? It's not a metaphor. It's not a simile. I'm not spiritualizing any of that. Okay? When I'm talking about zombies, I'm talking about dead people who are no longer dead people. Okay? And they're plasma possessed, which means most of them are thralls to the spirit that enters into this world, which is the red plasma from above, until the world is filled with that inner earth goodness, that blue beam energy, right? Then that might affect those bodies. But during the actual apocalypse, when all that red plasma is coming in, you know what I mean? When it's coming in to ground itself, that red plasma is on a mission to kill. Basically, to clean this world out. So anything that is possessed by that red plasma will likely become a killer, basically. Animals included. Let's see. Oh, I got you, Alex. Okay, cool. Dirk Zink says, how long have you been awake, Jay? Oh, I'm not awake. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm definitely not awake. I'm a dreamer, right? Yeah, I'm not even going to say I'm awake. Then I put myself in a whole other crowd of people who all say that they're awake too. And I'm like, okay. Photo or painting. I like it. Says, Jay, have you ever had sleep paralysis? I have, actually. It's not fun. Not a good time. Organic. Yes. You're welcome. Grooch says, JayDreamerZ, what's the chances we remember any of this after it happens? That's also a great question. I have a video on my Advanced Plasma Apocalypse playlist that talks about worldwide amnesia. Right? So the odds are not good of you remembering. Does that mean you won't remember? No, it totally doesn't. Will most survivors end up in some way, shape, or form forgetting about the apocalypse? Yes. Because that's who we are, right? That's where we are right now. We don't remember. I'm remembering some things. You know what I mean? Like how that's happening is a whole nother conversation, but I'm remembering things. I'm remembering because they've been forgotten. Society has forgotten the plasma apocalypse. And that's just a word, okay? That's just a word that I give to an event that I've seen happen time and time again in our past and indicates it's going to happen again in our future, right? And indicates that the things that we're going through now are because of the things that are about to happen and because of the things that have already happened, right? It's all connected. Jay is asleep. Yes, maybe. Or maybe I'm alive. Asleep or alive? Shadow Hunter says, Jay, some examples of what to prepare for. Instant fog. Yes. Fast winds. Yes. It's also going to be cold, I imagine, right? During the actual 3 days of darkness. It's going to be... I don't like getting cold. So I recommend dressing in layers for the apocalypse. I don't know how else to describe that. But yeah, fast winds and fog equals not a very warm, pleasant apocalypse. Probably be pretty cold. Loud things. Yes, definitely loud things. There's going to be explosions. Hey, Shadow Hunter, you're on it. I appreciate this. This is good stuff. Loud things. Yes. So explosions. First, I'm going to tell you there's going to be lightnings. Okay. Exceedingly great lightnings like we talked about in the beginning, which is going to create exceedingly great thunders. Okay. In different ways, it's going to sound different. Okay. Because the thunder we hear is from little tiny lightning that streaks across the sky in a microsecond. You know what I mean? Imagine the thunder from a plasma lightning that doesn't just show up and disappear, that stays constant. You know what I mean? So lots of weird, strange, loud sounds for sure. Need oxygen. Some people might need oxygen. Some people might be, you might be able to handle it. You know what I mean? You might be able to breathe and keep calm and stuff. The oxygen is going to help a lot of people who are hyperventilating. I'm telling you right now, people are going to freak out and they're going to have difficulty breathing to the point where they probably black out. And if they black out, they're going to float away. Don't fall asleep. Oxygen nosebleeds. Yes. So the depressurization also will affect the pressure that you have inside of your head. Also your sinuses, all the stuff that's connected. So you could possibly bleed from the eyes, crying blood, from the ears, from the nose. Right? Those are preludes to getting your powers, which is why oftentimes, like in Stranger Things, right, which I'm wearing right now. So in Stranger Things, 11 has this sort of byproduct of her superpowers, which is this psychic nosebleed or whatever. And that's why they show that so often, because it's a precursor to you inheriting superpowers or psychic powers or whatever. Plasma balls. Yes, definitely. Not just plasma balls, all kinds of forms of plasma all over the place. Plasma will be following the currents of the world. In some places, there will be eddies. There will be little banks and stuff where the currents will build up and you'll see plasma balls, right? And they're attracted to other forms of electricity. Guess what? You're a form of electricity. So Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, where these balls are just chasing people all over the place, that is a strong reality possible. Zero gravity, yes, or increased buoyancy. Fantazoids, yes, otherworldly beings, zombies, etc. Great one. Good call out. Sweet, I like it. Say no, says JayDreamerZ. What is the significance of copper plates on buildings in association with the plasma apocalypse? Okay, cool. This is super easy. If it's a dome, it's meant to attract electricity. Okay, that building was designed to draw in electricity. If it's a spire, or if it's a needlepoint, or an obelisk or things like that, those are meant to deter electricity, to keep electricity away. Or when it does hit, it will hit that obelisk or that lightning rod or whatever, and it will be redirected if it's grounded to wherever it leads underneath the earth. And then copper obviously is a conductor, right? All right, what else we got? Dirk Zink says, Jay, great answer. I lost most of my friends. That sucks. I'm sorry. I have a new friend. He lucid dreams. What is your opinion? Do you lucid dream? You are a dreamer. Yes, I am. And yes, I can lucid dream. Sometimes I don't want to. I'm just going to be honest. Sometimes I enjoy just going with the flow of my dream, whatever. I just kind of want to be surprised sometimes. But other times when I can lucid dream, it's very fun. Okay, it's like I'm in a video game. Like all of a sudden I realize I can do all kinds of stuff, right? And I barely have even tapped into the types of things that I'm able to do in my own dreams when I'm in control of them. So imagine what the world, the waking world, is going to be like when you have more control, when you have more power. You're not going to feel like some helpless little slave in the world to come. When the world flips on its head, the system will be gone. You'll be in charge of yourself. And you'll have all kinds of awesome byproducts to help you along, little gifts that have been given to you to help you on your way. Which is why we exchange gifts around Christmas time and, leaving the presents under the world tree and all that symbolism, right? Also, it's the same exact thing. That plasma that comes down into our world will petrify. It's going to do stuff to stuff, okay? That's how I say that. You can quote me. It's going to do stuff to stuff. I like being simple sometimes. Plasma is going to do stuff to stuff. What do I mean by that? I mean, it's going to petrify some things. Right? That strong electromagnetic current or that strong electrical current that hits things will be such a strong, powerful zap that it will petrify and change the molecular bonds in objects to turn them into stone, right? Solidifying them. Other forms of plasma has the opposite effect where it can actually create looser bonds. It all depends on the atmosphere and the amount of hydrogen and ions and stuff like that. Like, the plasma has the ability to do all kinds of things. Petrify, instantly creating statues out of a multitude of different objects and people and animals and plants and stuff. So it actually takes us back to an age of stone. It is what causes the Stone Age. It is what turns things into rocks. It is what creates strange looking boulders in the sky. There's a sweet YouTube channel. I don't know his name. I forgot. I watch him sometimes, but there's this one guy on YouTube where he just picks up random like rocks, okay, stones, and he's like, oh, this one's got a fossil inside of it, and he'll open it up like like a paleontologist does, and there'll be a crab. Oftentimes there's mini crabs. This dude finds all kinds of crabs. But before it was just a rock, this dude opens it up and there's a full-on crab that's just in a perfectly like spherical like river rock. You know what I mean? And he finds them all of the time. Imagine this, okay? Imagine crabs and people and animals and all kinds of stuff get sucked up because of the increased buoyancy factor. They get struck by the largest of the plasma tentacles or the plasma beams or conduits, right? And they become petrified. They become electrified. But in addition to that, think of all the extra debris that's going to be up there. The oceans, the rivers, they're all mixing with the entire world's sand and mud and muck and debris and all kinds of weird garbage and stuff that's all mixing up there. So you might have some people or animals or objects that get enveloped with mud up in the sky during this event. The mud is up there, looking like raindrops and stuff like that until it gets zapped. Boom. And anything in that mud becomes petrified. You know what I mean? And then some of that stuff falls back down to the earth in the form of strange random rocks and boulders and stuff. And modern academics explains this by saying that all of those circular shaped stones or river rocks or whatever they're called, that's just millions of years of water, smoothing it out. I say the opposite. I say that's instantaneous freezing or petrifying of something that is weightless up there in the sky. And then it floats back down and you have all these smooth rocks or whatever. And boulders. Mr. C. All right, we're going to do a few more and then this was good. I feel like doing this again sometime. I think this is good. Do you guys like this so that we can sort of, catch all the beginners up and stuff? I don't want to label people, but some people are newer than others. Mr. C says, JayDreamerZ, will the miles high trees, I didn't say there was mile high trees, but will they grow again? Do you think? Roger at Mud Fossil University. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Like, you guys pack in as much as you can into that little text field. So I have not ever mentioned mile high trees. I do believe trees grow way bigger, but I don't know if they're mile high. I don't know how tall the trees get. Just like I don't know how tall the Titans are or the Giants. I don't know what their maximum height is. You know what I mean? So I don't want to corroborate that and say, the trees will all be a mile high, because then there's going to be 1,000 people that watch this video who are going to say, JayDreamerZ said that the trees are going to be a mile high, and I'm going to do a video about it. You know what I mean? So will trees get big? Yes, definitely. What's your question? I'm sorry. I'm like rambling right now. Will the miles-high trees grow again? In short, yes. Okay? Trees will get way bigger. The trees we have today are little tiny shrubs in comparison to the trees that will grow after the conditions in our world change. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to have an attitude about the way you're asking your question. Sand, Texas says, hey from Amsterdam. JayDreamerZ, what has been your biggest disappointment for the past 2 to 5 years that you came to realize things or people yourself are not what they seem? I'm not disappointed in any of it. The biggest reality check. I am not disappointed in a damn thing. I accept. I accept the world the way that it is, right? Not the way that it's presented to me, but I accept everything that is happening and has happened and will happen. I totally accept. So I'm not disappointed. I'm not one of those people that would go back and change things if I had a time machine or whatever. No, not at all. I don't think that's possible. It's not impossible, but I have a different concept of time. But anyways, I'm not disappointed in my life. I'm not disappointed in the world. I think I'm not comfortable in the world right now, but I need to not be comfortable in the world right now. That's a part of my plan. That's a part of my walk and my path. I need to experience this so that I can better appreciate what is right around the corner. So I'm not disappointed in any of it. I'm thankful for all of it. Good, bad, and ugly. Mr. C says, JayDreamerZ, I think the movie Avatar was telling us something. I agree with you on that one. The new Avatar looks like it might suck. Am I the only one that thinks that? I've seen the previews and it's like, I think they waited too long to do the new Avatar. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I don't know. Anyways, Earth Wisdom says, Jay, when long age re-enters the scene, I see wisdom and intelligence increasing greatly. I do too. The human mind having that much more time to blossom will lead to the golden age and the Tartarian structures. Yes, so let's clarify. There is something called the golden age, which people refer to as a time of bliss, right? They're not talking about the actual color of gold. There's a reason it's called the golden age. It's not alchemical. It's not like your feelings turn golden on the inside, and so you're just Care Bear stare everywhere you go. No, it's not called the golden age because of that. It's called golden age because of the color gold. And that's what everything looked like. Like everything was golden, basically. It's amber glow. Let's see, where was I? Oh, yes. So the longer lifespan will help us to be more mature, basically, right? When you watch movies of those types of beings that live for a very long time, for example, the Elvin race, right? They're very mature. Some of those elves are only like 200-300 years old. They're children in the eyes of the Elvin race, but they carry themselves much better than any of us who are grown up do. You know what I mean? Because in reality, we're just children, you know what I mean? That we have like some weird Benjamin Button disease or something. Lead to the golden age and Tartarian structures, etc. So listen, Tartarian, from my perspective, means those who came from the North Pole. Very simply put, right? People talk on and on and on about Tartaria and this and that. I haven't heard anyone actually say who Tartarians are. I'm sure there's people out there, but I don't run across them, right? I just hear people throwing that word around like it's some fancy catchword, some trend word or something. Tartarian or Tat-Arian, right, are those who come from the Tree of Life. Those who come from that island at the North Pole, at the top of the world. They stay there for a time around the world tree. They procreate, they make their families and stuff. And during the next cycle, they all leave because that blue beam goes away. So they don't have any reason to stay there. So they go out and they become explorers and they're strangers in strange lands and stuff like that, right? So we will actually be reversing that going into the next cycle. Tartaria will not come out. It will go back, okay? All of you, many of you, who find your roots in the Tree of Life will return to the Tree of Life. You'll feel like a calling to go there, basically, as do the animals. Earth Wisdom says, Jay, let's see. Oh, I read that one. A huge, gigantic elephant carcass. Interesting. Okay. All right. Glad you like it, Alex. Do I think that there will be some kind of judgment day? Yes, we have talked about that already. So yes, this is judgment day. Judgment day is on the way. It's right around the corner. So Clint, do what you got to do to get ready for judgment day, I guess. I don't know how else to explain that. All right, cool. So, hey, I had a great time we're going to do this again sometime. Okay. I'm not exactly sure when, but I like this. I want to be able to just be basic with everybody and talk about, answer questions and just kind of open the floor up a little bit and then remind others of the process. How does the plasma apocalypse work? What are the things to look for initially? Looking back at the past, what has happened in our past? What can we expect to happen again in our future? So what things can we look for? The signs, the omens, the sequence of events, I feel are pretty, they can be beneficial to know, right? Oh, hey, pay no attention to this up here. Man, I forgot about that. Pay no attention to the scrolling marquee. I totally forgot about that. I was having technical difficulties. Let me take that off. Oh my God. It's way too late to do that now. Forget it. I'm not going to take it off. But I forgot to update that. Let's see. All right, cool. I'm going to go ahead and take off and go spend some time with my little guy. We're going to have dinner and stuff. I've had a great time hanging out with all of you. Look forward, hit the bell, because I do a lot of live streams and they're not scheduled or anything, right? It's just kind of when I have time to do them is whenever I do them. And sometimes I just do them when inspiration strikes. I feel like that's the best time for me to do my live streams, which is why I'm doing this one today. But maybe I'll do another weekend one. Maybe we'll make a habit of it. We'll see. Until next time, thanks for joining, and I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.
So hard to fade away. I try so hard to fade away, but something's forcing me to stay.
everybody. Good vibes. And good vibes, everybody. If they could still see us.
You in this vast multiverse.
Good vibes and goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for watching.
Bye.